Hello, and welcome to the South Coast Artist Index, where artists, performers, and writers, as well as curators, directors, and supporters, anyone with ties to the creative community, drops by to introduce themselves to you. We'll talk about their beginnings, their vision, their passion, and so much more.
Hi, this is Ron Fortier once again with another episode of the In Focus podcast brought to you by the South Coast Artists Index. And today we probably have our grand prize for the furthest away podcast. I will let our mystery guest introduce themselves, spell their name, and do the whole 9 yards so we can get going with this. Mystery guest.
Okay, so mystery guest's name is Matthew Beall, and you spell my last name B as in boy, E-A-L-L, pronounce it Beall. I'm from the United States, born and raised in California, but I live in Ulm, Germany, and you spell that U-L-M. And we are known for two things. We're famous here. One is Einstein was born here, and the other one is we have the tallest church in the world. And of course, I'm here, so that's the third thing.
That's the third thing. Yeah, the celebrity golfer who makes a living as an artist. Matthew, there's another Beall that I know, another artist named Don Beall, but he spells his with one L. And so I guess that stops people asking you, are you guys related?
You know what? I would. So my great uncle did a lot of research into the Beall family, and there are variations of the name. And I'm assuming that there must be some connection going back, 500 years. But no, I'm not related. Mm-mm.
So the going back those years, are you from the British Isles or are you German? Well, Anglo.
No, I am not. I have no German relations other than my wife, who is German.
Okay.
Um,
I hope you only have relations with her. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The Beall name, it's from the British Isles.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know exactly when, my clan, actually Scottish, the clan, how that all started in the United States, but I'm sure it's several hundred years ago.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, Ron, this is kind of connected to you. My mom's side of the family from the Azore Islands.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so my grandmother, who's still alive, 98 years old, was born in Hawaii. Her mother, so my great-grandmother, came from the Azores, went to Hawaii, where my grandmother was born, and then eventually ended up in California.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. There's like a huge. Well, those red trucks in Hawaii. I've never seen them, but I remember my stepmother when they bought a condo there, and my stepmother, and my father, and I told her about the red trucks, the Malasada trucks, and she's looking at me like, "Are you pulling my leg?" I said, "No, Mom. I heard it's like they're all over the place." And she said, "Really? There's Portuguese there?" I said, "Yeah, I think at that time. I think the governor's Portuguese, Camacho." Right? So she calls me up from Hawaii. Get out of here! But there is a huge connection over there with the Azoreans.
There is, yeah.
Yeah. What's the family's last name?
So the name, so Silvera, and then they shortened it to Silva. This is what I understand it to be. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
a lot of the Azoreans, some accept, some don't, were part of the Great Diaspora. Once Columbus left the Iberian Peninsula, the Jews first were kicked out of Spain, and then shortly after Portugal, and a lot of them ended up going to Brazil and the Azores. I mean, it's like an incredible history of the crypto Jews in those islands. My grandfather was still trying to figure out. His last name was Muraj, from the continent, from a heavy Jewish population in Gouveia. So it's a real interesting history. I'm trying to think back now, how the heck I first met you. Are you somehow connected to the New Bedford area or?
No, not at all. We
Okay,
met via Facebook by
okay.
chance, artist to artist, and I think I don't remember exactly, some years back now.
Hmm.
We contacted each other for something, and then you had a show
Hmm.
somewhere, Landshut, I think it
Yeah,
was,
Lancelot,
in
yeah.
Bavaria,
Yeah,
and you asked me to do your little biography, and I translated it for you. Do
that's right.
you remember
That's
that?
right. Yeah, I
I
still
think it's
do.
a couple years ago now.
I still do.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, we've had on and off
Um,
contact
yeah,
because of that.
yeah. That's right. That's right. Um, well, as I, ask everyone, so your official contact, because with the South Coast Artist Index, then is through knowing me, because I tell, the
Yes,
concept here is
correct.
there has to be some sort of a relationship, by acquaintance, by family, by living here, going to school here, everything short of buying a pack
Mhm.
of gum here at one time. Um, um, how did we all had this awakening as artists at some point in our lives, some very early, some very late. I mean, the one of the latest stories I ever heard of, I actually kind of experienced it. It was a friend who hung around with us in undergraduate school. His name was Jeff Moy, and I knew the family. His father was an accountant for one of the biggest Chinese restaurants in the city of Fall River. He was an engineer, I believe, and he hung around with us, and he was very mesmerized by what we did as artists. And he said, I think I could do this. And he started doing some sculpture. And next thing you know, he was he was off like a rocket, selling work, exhibiting. It was just unbelievable. So that's an interesting story. And then the rest of us, we have those moments like, at 3 years old, I drew an orange or whatever, and got a lot of praise, and that was the end of that. Where does your story begin?
Actually, it begins when I was just a little kid. When I would go to my grandparents and stay with them for the weekend, for example, my grandfather we called it the library. It was just a guest room with a lot of books.
Mhm.
And I'd go in there. He was from the Azores, by the way. And I would go in there, and I was always fascinated by all of the magazines that he received from Brazil. And then that led me onto an exploration of the library, and I found books about cartoons. So drawing cartoons. So I used
Mhm.
to do that when I was a kid. And then when I was 10 years old, so jumping a handful of years in time, I got I became fascinated with photography, and I saved my money. I had a newspaper route. I saved my money. I bought my first camera at 10, little 35 millimeter. Started taking photos. Which by the time I got into high school, I took a photography class, and we had the developing room. So I was, doing all this wonderful film development and exploring this artistic side. But I never thought about painting or drawing or anything like this when I was a teenager. And then when I grew up also surfing, so I thought, oh wow, photography and surfing, this goes really great together. So I was doing a little bit of surf photography. Then my dream was to go to photography school. My parents said, no, you're not going to make any money. So
Uh-huh.
I didn't do it. And then you kind of lose interest over time in something. So I put the camera aside for many, many years. Um, I came to Germany and I thought, I need some things to do. So, oh yeah, I'm missing an important part. One of my professions many, many, many years ago, I was in the auto body repair business. I was a painter and I did a lot of custom painting, and I specialized in street rods and Harley Davidson motorcycles. So everything from uh, painting flames, all this kind of customized paint.
Mhm.
I thought when I got to Germany, I thought, I could do something differently. So I started playing around on paper. And that led to Canvas. And so now for the past 20 years or so, that's all I've been doing. I do some photography, not as much as I used to, because painting is the thing that drives me.
Hmm.
And yeah, that's basically how I got to where I'm at.
Now, how did you get to Germany? That's the big question.
Yeah, that was not my plan. Um,
Never is,
so
right?
no, never is. Um, Back in 1996, I needed a change in my life, and I decided I needed to get out of my hometown, Santa Maria, California. It's on the Central Coast, about about an hour north of Santa Barbara. So I was in Mexico on a surf trip. I met a guy who um, was a tour guide. And I said, "Oh, that sounds like a really cool job. I'd like to do it." He gave me a business card. He said, "Give the company a call. They're always looking for people." I get back home. I give the company a call. Long story short, I got a job interview. I got a job with them. The next thing I know, I'm traveling all over the United States, eventually ending up in Mexico, living and working for 3 years, three and a half years. Then when that ended, I left Mexico, went to Los Angeles because I got a position in this company as their training manager, training all the new tour guides. And I had to live in Los Angeles. I hated it. Los Angeles is a horrible place. So I thought there's got to be something better for me in this world, and I'd always wanted to live in Europe. How can I get there? I had a friend, an acquaintance really, who lived and worked in Germany. I sent him a message. I said, "Hey, how do I get over there?" And he says, "Just come. You're an American citizen. You got a U.S. passport. It's no problem." This is what I did. I packed
Hmm.
a little backpack and one of those suit folding bags. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
have a
yeah.
I don't have a suit, by the way.
Yeah, a wardrobe bag. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay. $2,000. That's I said if I can't make it on that, then I'll never make it. I ended up in
Right.
Germany because of that. Next thing I know, it's just over 20 years I've been here.
Wow.
So, yeah,
Time flies.
time flies. It does, yeah.
Uh, it's my circumstance was to go live in Europe. It wasn't planned. My stepfather had an episode. He was at that time probably 95, I think it was, and he had an episode, and he was afraid he was going to die. Uh, Come to find out, it was hypothermia. But there's a whole other story to that. I mean, he had been hale and hearty most of his life, and um, he thought he was going to die, and he told my mother that he wanted to see his boys. And I was like, oh God, I always said, what's the sense of going over there to visit them if they're in a box, and didn't have the wherewithal, a couple of other things, and it sort of spurred me on to go visit. I brought my granddaughter with me. And in the middle of that, I got served divorce papers while I was over there. But while I was there, I couldn't understand why I felt so close to the place. And comes to find out, I was having flashbacks to when I was at the University of Miami, Coral Gables. I mean, the architecture, the whole nine yards, the
Hmm.
flora, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, well, I didn't expect this. I'm pretty pedantic, and got rid of everything. What I kept with three 55-gallon drums of possessions, sealed them up, put them on a boat to go over there to Portugal, and just started living there. And if I hadn't met my future wife, my present wife, which wasn't even on the radar, I'd probably still be there. And so it's like really serendipity, isn't it? You just
Yeah,
sometimes you have
for
to
sure.
just surrender to whatever your higher power, the universe. Any regrets?
None at all. Absolutely none at all. I have one regret in my life, and that's it. My parents offered me when I was in high school. So my grandparents took me to Brazil for this complete summer when I
Hmm.
was 15 years old. Traveled all over. 2 years later, I went to Brazil age 17 by myself.
Hmm.
traveled around. We had an exchange student from Brazil, and I stayed with his family. Then I met other people. I stayed, and I just traveled like that. Went surfing, took a surfboard, ended up selling it there. When I came back, my parents said, "We would like to send you as an exchange student to Brazil. What do you think?" And I didn't do it. I was, I got a driver's license. I was into my car, the whole thing. And,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
what about my friends and all of that? So, anyhow,
Uh-huh.
I didn't do it. And that is truly the only thing I regret in my
Yeah,
life.
yeah,
And being where I'm at is good. I love it. It's great, but I do miss home. Absolutely.
yeah.
Of course. And that's why we go every summer and spend, you know, probably about 5 or 6 weeks every summer. And
Hmm.
we used to go to California, but now we go to Florida because we have a place there now.
Yeah,
And so now that's our go-to place. I don't know about this summer, but
yeah.
anyhow, yeah.
Yeah, our travel plans to go. I mean, my mom's 93 and she's adamant, stay away. I don't care, you know,
Hmm.
don't want you guys to get ill. And then she said, certainly last but not least, I don't want, anything to be brought into the house. My
Sure.
stepfather passed away last May. It'll make a year now. He was just 4 days short of his birthday on the 11th. But I did go and get to see her, which was great. And I speak with her every Sunday. Thank God for Skype.
Yeah.
Um, Now, um, you make a living as an artist in Germany.
Well, I would say a partial living.
Yeah.
I wish I could live completely from this.
Right.
Every artist's fantasy dream. Yeah.
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 Yeah. I mean, the photographs of your studio, your posts that you put in
Hmm.
on Instagram and Facebook.
Hmm.
It shows a whole nother world, a whole nother life. The rainy days, the sunny days,
Absolutely.
that sort of thing. Your technique that you use is very, very simplistic. I mean, who would you say? How did you get on that track to the kind of work that you're doing currently? And
Well,
actually, you've
eh,
been doing that for as long as I've known you.
yeah.
There's been some evolution. Is this some of that? I don't want to say Japanese, but Asian kind of compositional influence, and it's nice stuff.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, a lot of people tell me that, and I have a few people. So here in my area, there are a few people that buy from me. I guess I'm hesitant to say collectors, but they collect things from me. So
Hmm.
one of them is he brought this up a number of years ago, saying, "Oh, you have this kind of Asian thing." I never saw it,
Hmm.
but as soon as he said it, I began to see it. And to be honest, I have no idea why. I don't know where it comes from.
Hmm.
I'm very influenced from, of course, the original abstract expressionists. And these guys that are all dead that I admire greatly, Motherwell,
Hmm.
probably that's predominant, I think. So I think I have a lot of influences from the work that I've seen of his in museums or in books that I have, etc.,
Hmm.
online. Um, yeah, and I've just always been drawn to abstract things in general. And this kind of abstraction, this types of paintings, always, ever since I can remember, have always grabbed me in some way. We had one when I was a boy. So I had my dad's uncle, so my great uncle painted an abstract painting. I don't think he was I just think he's a hobby artist, but it hung over the fireplace in our home, and I was
Hmm.
always fascinated by this beautiful painting.
Hmm.
And that I can't, I don't know why. It just is so. I just have this connection. So that's the reason why I probably do it.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. Are you a puzzle maker? Do you like to make puzzles? Do you like to take things apart, put them back together, or that kind of
Mm, Not
mindset?
not really. I think a lot,
Okay.
but I'm not drawn to puzzles. I'm drawn to solving problems, but I just think a lot,
Okay. Um,
basically.
I want to be a 3-year-old for a bit. What do you think about? Yeah.
I think, man, I'm thinking about what tomorrow brings.
Yeah.
Um, I think about everything from what will someone think about this painting. I think about why am I doing what I'm doing? I think I think how did I end up here in Germany and why am I still here after 20 years? It's all kinds of really weird stuff. And sometimes little things I encounter, for example, like every family has ups and downs in the family. And
Hmm.
I wonder why, with some of my families, there's so many ups and downs. And I want to know, how can I solve it? What can I do to make it better? And then I sit in my studio and I think about this stuff.
Hmm.
And then I realize I really can't do anything about it. And then sometimes that leads to these things that come out of my mind
Hmm.
that I need to get out on paper or canvas of some sort. And I start with this idea sometimes, and then it ends up being something that is totally disconnected from what I originally began with.
Yeah.
So it's a big mystery to me.
Um, so you approach the easel, so to speak. In your case, it's the table, because
Yes,
you work flat. So you approach the work with one intent or a fuzzy idea, and then it just develops on its own.
usually yes. Yeah,
Um, I know the feeling. I used to go to the easel with an intent, and then I just stopped. I
yeah.
just stand there and put down just I always talk about the three marks. The first
Hmm.
one is difficult. Um, the first one is difficult because that's the kick in the ass, to get
Hmm.
going.
Hmm.
The second one now creates the relationships with the first one, and that sets you off
Hmm.
on your path. And then
Hmm.
the last one is the most difficult of all. That's the last one. You just got to
Yes.
stop before you
Yeah.
you kill it.
Uh-huh.
But I had somebody there was a memory that showed up in Facebook yesterday about a show that I had in a beautiful little gallery in the historic district of New Bedford. And I remember that show. Someone asked me about how my process. People love to ask artists those
Hmm.
questions. And I went to go answer. It was a woman. I went to go answer her. I had an answer, and then something jumped into my head. And I said, "Well, do you remember the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind?" She says, "Yes." I says, I think Jack was the main character played by Richard Dreyfuss.
Hmm.
Um, he starts playing. He has this encounter on his way home, and they're at dinner, and he starts playing with his mashed potatoes, and he can't understand why he's creating a sculpture, but he's just driven to do it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's like being an antenna, a conduit. I don't know.
Yeah. This is it. Yeah.
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 May
And
I ask your astrological sign?
Sagittarius.
Okay. Okay, that's interesting. I could have pegged
Okay.
you for a Virgo.
Okay.
Yeah, because my wife and my dad are Sagittari, and there's another mindset to them completely. Maybe it's just the artistic thing. Um, so in Europe, um, when I lived there, people would ask me, "What do you do?" And I would say, "I'm an artist," and they would go, "Oh, really? Have I seen your work? Are you published? Do you have a current exhibit? May I go
Yeah.
see it?" And it'd be like, "Wow." Here,
Hmm.
it's like, "What do you do?" "I'm a painter." "Oh, you make a living doing that?"
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. That's it. You got it. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah.
What kind of support does the German government give you as a painter, as an artist,
Um,
or what is
so,
available to you?
well, there are many things available. I don't uh, take it because I would not qualify with my income.
Hmm.
But here in Europe, as you know, Europe as a whole is very supportive of the arts. And Germany in particular is extremely supportive of all kinds of artists, from musicians to painters to poets.
Hmm.
And this particular coronavirus situation, there's a special rescue package, for lack of a better way to say it, for artists. And it's a very so I don't qualify for it, and therefore I don't need it. only because of the income that I have. However, if I did need it, it's just a simple process. You fill out the form, you send it in, and you get it. Unlike what's going on in the States. Of course, there's no support for artists, I don't think, but in general, what's going on in the States.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what goes on in the States what went on prior to the pandemic, and what goes on now and what goes on afterwards, it's all the same.
Hmm.
It's an
Yep.
unfortunate kind of thing.
It
Artists
is.
have to band together. We have a thing here where organizations, nonprofits will tap you, for so to speak, and say, "Oh, could you donate one of your pieces of
Oh
work
yeah.
for our auction?" Blah blah blah
Yeah.
blah. And it's like, okay, sure. And oh, you'll get some wonderful exposure out of it. It's like, well,
Hmm.
I've tried to pay my rent with exposure, but they won't accept it.
Sure. Exactly. Ron, I get so many emails from
Excuse me.
um, what do you call these places? These groups that do this stuff that, oh, could
Yeah.
you donate a painting? Could you do this? Could you do this? And no, I mean, there's two sides to it. Of course, maybe it could really truly help something. Yeah, that's great. However, not the way in which they do it. They just have this idea that you have no value. Not really. So they don't value your work. It's work, but maybe not in the sense of their definition of work.
Hmm.
And so I ignore all that stuff now, and now I can laugh about it because I've become cynical, of course, as I get older.
Hmm.
In the beginning, it bothered me, then I'd have to send a message saying more or less what you said. Now I don't even bother with that anymore. I don't get that from anything here in Europe, but things from the States.
Yeah.
And over the years, I'm on many different mailing lists and things I don't even remember registering for. But yeah, it's quite annoying, to be honest.
Uh, the my first, awakening, the splash of cold water, that sort of thing, after having been over there for just a few short months, other than the fact that I lost 12 kilo um, in 4 months without doing anything. Still enjoying my pastry in the morning with my first coffee, because there's like
Hmm.
three coffees, before
Hmm.
noontime.
Of course, yeah.
And you work your way up from a pastry to a savory to probably a small thing, and then you have that 2-hour lunch. But it was the culture, um, that either A, Europe has a culture, and B, the United States doesn't have one, or American culture is oxymoronic to begin with.
Yeah.
Um, and the values that are placed on things there are so different than the values that are placed on things here. And I think this pandemic might be a great equalizer. Hopefully, we come out of this better. It sounds horrible with 60,000 dead,
Yeah.
but hopefully, we come out better for this. If you had a choice, if you had no choice, and you had to return to the United States, how would you feel about that as a person, as an artist?
Hmm. Well, if I had no choice, I had to do it. I could do it, of course.
Hmm.
I think I would find my way there, artistically speaking. I don't think I
Hmm.
would have a real huge issue. I would be on the hunt for a studio, of course. Absolutely. Um, yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting question. I've never really thought of it from that point of view. Huh. The real problem I have with the states, and it's been like this since I was a kid, is the political makeup of the states, and especially now. So that's the hardest thing for me. Even when I go visit, it's always difficult for me to even be around anyone that wants to talk about this stuff without being reasonable. So that's actually would be the tough thing for me,
Yeah,
not the art side of it.
right.
Yeah. Hmm.
Let me ask you a question. On November of 2016, the morning after the election, what was your experience? You tell me yours, I'll tell you mine.
I was shocked, devastated. angry, um, thought maybe I didn't really wake up, and extremely disappointed in my fellow countrymen. That's it. And I
How,
still am.
what was the reaction of your friends and family there towards you, or their expressions that they shared with you?
So we all felt the same way.
Hmm.
And all the Germans that I know were all, how can this happen? Why? And I said, I don't know why. I can't give you an answer. And um, my friends, so I have several friends that live here that are also American. We think the same way, and we all shared the same. We had the same emotional experience,
Mm.
and it's very very difficult. And I here in Germany, and with people that I know Germans, they see the United States as a kind of like a circus, and that's my word.
Yeah.
And but the idiot that leads the country, and I use that word lead only because I can't think of another word at the moment, is a clown, and this is what many Germans have told me, and this has also been in the press, on and off, uh, using the word clown.
Well, I'm,
So
I'm
yeah.
also thinking of some of the floats that they've created, which are
Yeah,
kind of
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
pornographic. Yeah,
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 yeah.
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 Yeah, it's interesting because I had the same thing. I was at the cafe in the morning, and people are just like looking at me, and I'm, am I fly down? My hair not, what? And so they were very sheepish, and they came up
Yeah.
to me and almost hat in hand kind of thing, and they reached out to shake my hand, which is unusual because they generally embrace you. It's like that
Mhm.
kiss hug thing, that they do
Yeah.
over there. And they said, we don't know what your affiliations are, but we think we know it's not with the party that won. And some of them, uh, were just absolutely stunned. There was one German who just basically looked me dead in the eye and said, "What the fuck is wrong with you people?"
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
It was a German,
Yeah,
and
yeah. Yeah.
so my question is, it's funny because so it's a similar experience.
Yeah.
My question is, what did they know that we didn't know, or the United States didn't know?
I that, that's a great question. God, I wish I had a I wish I had a really good off the cuff
Yeah.
reply to this. I don't, but I think that they are just, I think here in Europe, people are just much more reasonable. I think they just see things more clearly and are past themselves. They don't look at themselves as the answer. They look at the whole. It's more collective, I guess.
It is.
Yeah.
I noticed, for example, in Portugal, even like a town like Figueira da Foz,
Hmm.
um, I had a gentleman say something. The design, it's function follows form,
Hmm.
because they have to build. The gentleman said, "We don't have the resources you have to waste.
Hmm.
We don't have space. Space is one of the
Hmm.
resources that Europeans have never really had because of landed gentry and so on and so forth.
Hmm.
So we have to make the best with what we have." So that's why they've got garages in places you would even imagine a garage could exist. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, and the architecture. I mean, there's a thinking. Okay, there's a thinking that goes on to everything. And here, I think we have so much waste. I think he was absolutely
Hmm.
correct. We have so much
Hmm.
waste. And then someone else said, "We've got buildings here that are older than your country."
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Um,
Yeah.
uh, what now? Living there and working there as an artist. What do you see in your future? What's your next step?
So I'm 57 years old. Uh, I don't see myself living here. When I retire, and I use that word extremely loosely, I could not imagine not doing anything.
Mm,
But when I can be able to not have to work, I like working.
Hmm.
I
Oh, may I
want to,
ask you what you do for your other job, or like this, they would call it
yeah,
here, your real job?
yeah, sure. I do corporate training. So
Okay.
I work with several international companies helping them out with their communication stuff, from language, from cultural, cross-cultural communication, all of these types of things. So that's what pays for most of my stuff. And my wife Violetta, she does this as well as other things. So we're both self-employed, and thank God,
Hmm.
we have not lost much work. And so we work online now, which is really a lifesaver. And anyhow, that's another story. But yeah, so anyhow, um, yeah, that's it. Yeah.
When you said that, it clicked in my head. So this pandemic is now forcing, that's actually the proper word, forcing people to rethink how they do things
Hmm.
and why they do things.
Hmm.
And that's going to affect your business how when this ends? Pretty much not at all, because you've already been repositioned, so to speak.
Yeah, this I don't think will affect me.
Hmm.
I think it'll affect me in a very positive way. So I work, and this is going on. So 19 years I've been working with a pharmaceutical company, a huge one.
Hmm.
And this is, they, there's no end in sight. It's an open door. So we're pretty fortunate to be hooked up with them. So
Yeah.
I don't have any great fear. Saying all that, of course, I'm realistic. You don't know literally what will happen tomorrow.
No.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you an example about the art stuff. I sold a painting recently.
Congratulations.
I thank you. I love Instagram. So
Yeah.
someone bought this painting. So I thought, okay, I'm going to send it to you. And they're in the States. I think they're in Connecticut, but I can't remember the name of the town now.
Hmm.
So I wanted, I went to DHL. I wanted to send it. I packaged it all up. And because of all these restrictions, and it's something to do with the United States, I don't quite understand everything.
Uh-huh.
Um, they they meaning DHL,
Yeah.
and this is a very small piece on paper. The price would have been 37 euro plus a special surcharge of 16 euro. So I said, there's no way. So I contacted the buyer and I said, look, I'm really, really sorry about this, but it's not going to happen. So maybe we can postpone sending this until this thing hopefully levels out and people, for example, postal or sending packages becomes
Hmm.
reasonable again.
Yeah.
So I sent the money back to them. I did it via PayPal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in that way, I feel more comfortable and I think they feel more comfortable. So I can't even sell a painting. And I get people that inquire about this in the States because for me, I think it's criminal for them to pay that much money to get a small painting on paper, for God's sakes.
Yeah, it is.
It's ridiculous. So I just say, hold off. But because of that, a week later, I sold two paintings to someone here in Germany, which is very cool. So
Uh-huh.
I'll give it to them in several weeks when the restrictions loosen up here.
It's the reason why I'm laughing is because I had all that work in Kaiserslautern.
Hmm.
It was all crated up because it went from Portugal to Kaiserslautern,
Right.
and
Yeah.
that was like I think it probably cost me 200 euro for that. It was
Mm-hmm.
45 kilo, so it was within the weight
Hmm.
restrictions or whatever you want to call it, weight and size. To get it to the United States, it cost me 900 euro.
Oh my God.
Yeah, 900 euro. And what the hoops that I had to jump through were absolutely phenomenal. And a lot of it had to do with one word, one three-letter word on the manifest. Art.
Uh, oh,
Art.
art. Okay. Yeah. Hmm.
Because for some reason that's like a trigger word
Hmm.
from what it was explained to me that they x-rayed my work. All right, because they're thinking that I'm like smuggling Picasso's or Goya's or
Okay.
whatever out of Europe,
Uh-huh.
gessoed over with some crappy, abstract art on it. And it was just absolutely ridiculous. And
Mhm.
then when it finally got here, um, this is a box I could have gotten out of the truck by myself, a crate that I
Yeah.
could have gotten out of the truck by myself.
Yeah.
Um, and they charged me $100 to put it on the lift gate.
Really? Oh my God.
So now when
This
I
is
shipped it, to a gallery afterwards in Chicago, and it cost me all of like $260 to get it to the gallery.
You have some valuable paintings.
Yeah. So it is kind of bizarre. It is kind of bizarre.
It is. It's strange. Yeah.
I mean, you have to declare what's in there. I mean, if it's a flat package or if you just rolled it up like an architectural print or
Yeah.
something.
So you know what I normally put it in a tube. That's
Hmm.
normally what I do.
Yeah.
And then I always check with the person that buys, how do you want to declare this? What do you want? Yeah, this whole
Hmm.
deal.
Right.
And then I just do whatever they want. And I give them the option if they want to pay extra for the insurance that the carrier offers,
Hmm.
they can do it.
Yeah.
And of course, no, I'm not going to be held responsible, the whole thing.
Right.
And the Saatchi,
Yeah.
the online platform.
Right.
I've sold a couple over the years, only two paintings,
Yeah.
and which was really cool about that. They take care of it all.
Yeah.
That's really great. So that was a great experience for me. But I had a little trick many years ago. Someone that comes from my hometown used to work here in Germany as a contractor for the U.S. military. So he had base privileges, and I would go through the US Postal Service to ship stuff. I would just go to his place. I
Yeah.
drive about 2.5 hours, and it was very cheap compared to the prices like you're talking about. And that's just ridiculous, this
Yeah.
amount of money to send I don't know, a 80 by 100 centimeter canvas painting, for example.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It
And
is
I
crazy.
it is crazy, and I've also taken the canvas off the stretcher bars, rolled it up, and when I fly, carry it with me, and then send it from wherever I am in the States. I've done
Well,
that as
that's an interesting thing as well. With all of the security and so on and so forth, you get a tube, okay, a
yeah,
drawing tube, the plastic ones,
yeah, yeah.
um, and you put your stuff in there. Because I did that. I was the gallery that I was associated with, well, I still am, O Rastro in Figueira, told me to do a bunch of off stretcher paintings
Hmm.
for the auctions there,
Hmm.
because it was a tactic, a strategy that he was trying to use, because it's one of those weird things in Europe. There's a whole other mindset there too. Like, you can flood the auctions with your work. It's going to go for cheap money, but at least your
Hmm.
name is out there and people
Right.
have you
Yeah.
in their collections.
Yeah.
And then you have to really disentangle yourself from the cheapness of your of
Yeah.
your work. So
Yeah.
anyway, Rui, the gallerist, said, yeah, he says, I want to back off. I'm going to come up with another strategy. I mean, God bless him. He was always coming up with something. But so I came back to the States for my first visit, and I had them all rolled up. And I didn't want it to go in cargo. It was
Yeah.
a checked-in
Hmm.
luggage. Well, the woman said, "What do you got in there?" And I said, "Art." She said, "Oh, you can carry that on board."
Yeah.
I said, "You
Yeah.
don't even." They didn't even look at it. They didn't even X-ray it.
Yeah.
They didn't do anything. It was like the
Yeah.
most
Yeah.
bizarre thing.
Yeah.
So in one hand, it's like, "What are you smuggling?" On another hand, it's like, "We don't want any part of that."
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
you,
Yeah.
you just don't know, because there was a woman over there who bought a piece and wanted to ship it to Seattle from Portugal. This was uh, 80 by 90 centimeter. I forget my sizes now. A piece. It wasn't a deep, but what they call a tall stretcher over there. And it was like $1,000. I was like shocked.
That is shocking, man.
But
Okay.
I sent my mom a birthday present last year. She ran out of perfume that she had, and she's like 90 something years old, and just the way she, she said, I just feel, I don't feel right without this perfume. And she says, I know it's like it's a lot of money, blah blah blah. It's like, oh, all right. So I started looking online for this perfume, and I finally found it on eBay. It was the original, because she said, the new stuff is watered down. Your brother bought me some stuff, and she says it smelled the same, blah blah blah. So I got it through eBay out of Connecticut. The guy was very reputable. He had like all the certifications for being a reputable guy. It got there to the Portuguese Postal Service, and it sat there for, I think, 2 months because of customs. So it cost me more money to get that thing out of customs than it did to buy the perfume and to ship it.
Yeah, I just don't understand the whole customs thing. I've had difficulties with. I had a painting that I had in a show years ago in New York, and it was sent back to me. Of course, it did not sell, so it was sent back. And I had to pay 53 euro. 53 euro customs duty, and it's my painting. I explained this to them, and they looked at me as if, okay, so
Yeah.
I paid
And your
53
point?
euro. Yeah, exactly.
No,
So
yeah.
I will never understand that, but that's the way it was. So I don't know. Yeah.
Then it hit me, after all this is all said and done, I was like, oh, you're an idiot. Maybe you should have sent it to Bill, my brother, in Landstuhl. Sent it to him, and then he would have sent it to Portugal, because now would have been the Shenzhen, thing.
Yeah.
But I still don't know.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
But
It's a mystery.
if that's the worst part of living over there, I can accept that. I can accept it. That's for sure.
I'm with you. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, because don't forget, there's still some of the very old European bureaucratic nudge, nudge, wink, wink things that's just the way life is.
Yeah.
And they put no stock in the things that we as Americans put stock in, and they put enormous stock into things that Americans could care less about, like a good coffee.
Exactly. Yeah. I agree with you. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's next for you, Matthew Beall? With 2 L's?
Can you elaborate a little bit on that? What do you mean by what's next?
As far as an artist, your art,
okay. So yeah. So I've checked off everything on my list. So I actually had a list of things that I wanted to accomplish, and I've accomplished those. So I think it would be really nice to be a little bit more appreciated. So I'm trying to find a way. For example, I'm trying to figure out how all this Instagram really works, and have people that, it's really nice to get someone that likes it, but to have an interaction. And this is what I mean by appreciation.
Yeah.
I have some followers that constantly send me messages. Wow, this is really nice that, and people saying thank you to me for sharing this, and it makes me feel good. But it's very limited. So, I would like to have that kind of thing. Maybe it's an ego thing. I don't know. Yeah.
No, praise and exposure doesn't pay the bill.
Yeah, it does.
Everybody says, "Oh, you're a genius." It's like, well, prove it.
If I could, if I could sell enough work to live from it, I would, of course, love that. But you know what? I'm past that, actually. I am okay with that. I am thankful that I do occasionally sell my work. And every time that happens, I always wonder why. And someone's really paying me for something that I made that came out of my head. It's amazing to me. So I always appreciate it.
Yeah. My wife asked me the question, do you want to be supported by your art, or do you want to be sustained by it? And I always tell her, or ask her, why can't it be both?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, I guess I love to interact with artists. So these kinds of things I value. So I guess the what next is expanding that more. I wouldn't mind doing. I've never been to Japan, but I've always wanted to go to Japan. And then I thought, oh, it would be great to do an artist residency there. And of course, right now, this is not possible. I've looked into it in the last several years ago, at least, but I never really followed through. I did two in New York. 2010, 2011 was a great experience. I loved it. It was wonderful. However, um, when I got back into the real world, it was really hard for me to get back into it because I thought, wow, this is the life that I really want, this
Yeah.
artist life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
No,
so
I
yeah,
like that. I like that what you just said, the artist life. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I remember in grad school, not just because two of the crazy people that I hung around with that are like dear friends were very military minded, military historians, that kind of thing. Not crazy red hat wearing people,
yeah, yeah.
but um, I felt as though I was in a MASH episode. The camaraderie was just absolutely. I mean, you are like banded together with these people, and they talk about, we as artists were isolated in our own little studios. They have
Yeah,
an
yeah.
old factory building here that has 65 artists, and the biggest complaint, or the universal complaint, is the isolation. There's
Mhm.
65 artists in the building, but nobody wants to leave their studio to go talk
Yeah,
to somebody else.
yeah,
Where
yeah.
I wonder if in Europe that were the case, there'd be a cafe, some building,
I,
where people would be smoking and having cigarettes and coffee and discussing
yes.
art, and its
And this is
grandeur.
what, yeah, this is what they do. This is
Yeah,
exactly what they do. Yeah, they
yeah,
they actually they actually interact in that way.
yeah,
Yeah. But
yeah,
my studio is in my building, so I just
yeah,
go. I just it my apartment is connected directly to it. I just open a door and walk through, and I'm in my
yeah,
studio. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. This has been wonderful, Matt. We're gonna do this again because I tell
yeah,
everybody that's on the show this is never a one and done. Because the first
great.
one is exploring.
Okay, yeah,
People say, "Oh, I didn't really talk about myself, as an artist or whatever. I really didn't talk about this. I just talked about, when I was in graduate school." And it's like it's fine because you're not a page, you are a book, and that's
thank you.
what this
That's a
is all
good way to
about.
say it.
We the idea of this thing stimulated. If you go on the website, you can read all about why this was started. But one of the other things, and I've got to get the title to it. Back in the '70s in school as an undergraduate, the abstract expressionists. There was a very famous filmmaker, and they were all sitting on ladders. It was kind of weird, and they were all talking, and it was kind of interesting to see a Franz Klein. It was interesting to
Mm,
see
mm,
Frank Stella, to see and hear them, and then look
mm.
at their artwork, because you look at the artwork and you can be in awe or you could be like, eh.
Yeah.
But when the person, the maker, and I think I had this experience, just the last story, and then we'll wrap it up, of a neighbor, a Portuguese neighbor from the islands, and very Portuguese, very traditional. He made wine in his basement, and according to his tradition, the first taste had to be from a neighbor. He wouldn't taste it. No one in the family would taste it. He had to go to the closest neighbor, which was me. And let me tell you, when you're looking eye to eye to a person who just offered you a gift and an honor,
Mhm.
that's a lot of pressure. Especially
It
if the
is.
stuff is
Yeah.
like battery acid. What are you gonna do? Like, smile and like, let it
Exactly.
just drain
Yeah.
down your throat, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that's what this is all about, because there are young people who may trip across your story. They're just undergraduates now that just started their careers, or whatever, and they're going to listen and they're going to say, there's way more to this. There's more dimension
Mhm.
to the life
Yeah.
of an artist than what you read in
Absolutely.
books or whatever. So,
Absolutely.
final question. Um, what would you like to be known for? Once you pass, once your spirit leaves this dimension that we're in now, what would you like to be known for?
Hmm. Maybe this sounds corny, but this is, with all honesty, I really would like to be known simply for being a nice human being with, in relating with other people as a human relates to another human with respect and politeness and all of this wonderful stuff. Really, that's truly what would be great, I think. Of course, I also wouldn't mind people remembering some of the paintings I made. That would be nice as well. But really, honestly, being nice. I know that sounds like cliche, but it's the
No,
truth.
no,
Yeah.
it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
Do unto others the whole nine
Yeah.
yards.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's very true. Matthew Beall, direct from Ulm, Germany. Thank you so much. This has
Thank you,
been
Ron.
a pleasure, and we will do this again. I will alert you as to when this podcast will
Okay.
be broadcast so that you can catch it over there. And once again, this is Ron Fortier with the In Focus podcast, signing off, and hope to see you the next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ron.
Thanks for listening to the South Coast Artist Index podcast. For more information, please visit theartistindex.com.